Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. It's Julie from sproutsandstems.com here. And in the first video of 2025, I'm going to be talking about staghorn fern tips, care tips to grow a nice, healthy staghorn fern. So before I get into that, please take 2 seconds to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any new planty content from me, and check out the video description for links to anything that I mention in any of my videos, plants, supplies, blah, 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 and also links to my YouTube membership / Patreon for exclusive planty content and more benefits. And now we'll get into the tips. So this is my staghorn fern, or should I say staghorn ferns, plural, because there are multiple little ferns in one pot. So normally one fern of this size would start having like bigger, more magnificent fronds, but these are all still little skinny fronds because there are little babies in this one pot. There's about 4 or 5, and a little bit of staghorn fern background that will be a helpful primer for my tips is that staghorn ferns are epiphytic. They're epiphytes. They grow attached to a tree. Epiphytes aren't harmful to trees. They just grow attached to a tree trunk. So if there's a little like notch in a trunk or a little like corner of a trunk in a branch, they'll kind of sit right in there and attach themselves and grow that way. Staghorn ferns have 2 types of fronds. The green ones that you see are the fertile fronds, and these are the fronds that produce the spores to make more ferns. And then there's also sterile fronds, also called basal fronds, also called shield fronds. They start off greenish and then eventually they'll shrivel and turn brown. There's a nice one I saw in here. Okay, that one's small, but it's relatively new, so it's still green and like kind of solid. And they aren't responsible for reproduction. They're sterile, but they're called shield fronds. They kind of shield, once the fern gets bigger, they will shield like the whole root ball rhizome and help attach it to the tree. And as I mentioned, these will turn brown and shrivel up over time, but don't remove the basal fronds, because as they're shriveling up and new ones come in, they're still acting as protection. So just let those fronds fall off naturally. But these fertile fronds, if any of them are damaged, you can remove those, no problem. Now that we have some background and we know that this is an epiphytic plant, epiphytes, they grow high up on big, tall trees. They are somewhat close to the sky, the light source, but they're still covered by like the top of the canopy. So that means that staghorn ferns like bright indirect light. Make sure that there isn't any direct light shining directly on the leaves for too long, otherwise it's going to burn the plant and make it unhappy. And I keep holding it like this because I'm like, look, it's growing on a tree, but I can just hold it normally too. Yeah, bright indirect light as if it were high up in a tree in the rainforest. For watering, you want to allow the root ball to basically almost totally dry out in between waterings. Staghorn ferns and epiphytes in general can be sensitive to overwatering. You want to make sure that the root ball and also the basal fronds, those brown shield fronds, are also getting watered because those help absorb nutrients as well as the roots. So that's another thing about epiphytes. They don't necessarily rely on their roots for everything. They rely on their leaves and fronds, and they collect rainwater and debris from around them. So You want to make sure that those brown shield fronds are also getting watered, whether you are soaking the plant, if it's mounted on something, if you're soaking the plant, make sure those are soaked too, or if you're just watering from above, make sure those get some water. And then related to making sure the plant dries out enough before watering again, you want to make sure that this is planted in a loose, well draining, well aerated potting mix. That goes for all epiphytes, because naturally they're growing in kind of just like a loose pile of debris. They're not growing tightly packed in the ground like this. They can grow like this. This is how most of them are at the store when you buy them from a garden center, but they actually do prefer to be mounted or in some kind of loose hanging basket. And I'll put a picture just from somewhere of a mounted staghorn fern so you can see what I'm talking about. But if you're doing that, you want to just kind of like surround the root ball in some loose moss and other organic materials. And if you're potting it in a basket or pot like this, just make sure the soil is nice and loose. It doesn't have to be tightly planted, just kind of like sitting in the potting mix. And then make sure that it has really good drainage. So all that allows for air circulation to the roots, and the potting mix won't stay wet for too long. The plant won't get overwatered. Those are my staghorn fern care tips. You can understand why knowing a little bit about the plant's background and the natural habitat in which it grows is really crucial for understanding how to care for the plant, and it makes it all a little bit easier, and it makes it all make sense. Let me know what you think about staghorn ferns. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.